Should fantasy football players lower their expectations for Bears running back David Montgomery? Let's break it down with SI senior fantasy analyst Michael Fabiano. And Fabs, Montgomery, he was phenomenal for the second half of the season, right? From weeks 12 through 17, he was the highest scoring running back in the PPR format. Just talk a little bit about what we saw out of him last season and how what we expect to see from him in 2021.
He was a league winner. I mean, there's no question about it. When you have a stretch like he did, averaging over 25 points per game in that 6 game stretch that you had mentioned, he helped a lot of folks get to and win a fantasy championship. But as you also mentioned, it was kind of a tale of two seasons, right? He was 21st in fantasy points among running backs over his first 9 games. And then the rest of the season, of course, went on to become a superstar. But a lot of that had to do with the fact that they played a lot of cupcake run defenses in those 6 games. So Montgomery not only had a great schedule, game script was in his favor, and there's no competition in the Bears' backfield at that point. So all the planets aligned for Montgomery to emerge as a superstar.
You brought up the competition for him in that Chicago backfield. This year, they'll have Tariq Cohen back. He was injured in 2020. They also signed Damian Williams off the Kansas City Chiefs roster. Talk a little bit about Matt Nagy and his coaching staff and how they typically use running backs in their offense.
Well, remember last year, Nagy handed over the play calling duties to Bill Lazor. He's going to take those play calling duties back in 2021. And they've had success, right? I mean, Nagy back with his time with the Chiefs as the OC. Kareem Hunt was an RB4. Montgomery last year was an RB4. Tariq Cohen had an RB11 finish in 2018. And Nagy's come out and said he wants to get Montgomery 20 carries a game this season. Bill, I don't see that happening at all. When you look at the numbers, he had 20 plus rushing attempts 4 times last year. And that includes the last 3 games where he had 20 plus. And with the addition of Williams, the return of Cohen, as you mentioned, I just don't see Montgomery getting 20 carries a game. I'd feel pretty good about 18 to 20 touches per game.
Right now, according to the latest average draft position data, Montgomery's the 20th running back off the board, 34th player overall. So what's the verdict on him? Should people be drafting him in that range, or should they be passing up and looking at a running back elsewhere at that point in the draft?
The industry is kind of corrected for Montgomery's, well, advantages last season, right? Because typically when a running back finishes as the RB4, the following year, he's probably no worse than a second round pick. And right now, Montgomery's a fourth round pick. Why? Because we all know that there is going to be regression. We all know that Montgomery was near the top of the list of running backs in terms of routes run per game last season. Why? No Tariq Cohen. And that's going to change in 2021. Cohen's going to become the pass catching option out of that backfield. So Montgomery will lose pass catching opportunities. He is not going to have as many catches or receiving yards. In turn, Damian Williams is also in the mix. And the last time we saw Williams, Bill, was when? The Super Bowl, when he was staking his claim to being an MVP in that game for the Chiefs before opting out due to COVID-19. Montgomery is worth a fourth round pick. I think we've corrected him on a very solid basis. He is not a first or second round pick, and at this point, most of the ADP data out there absolutely agrees with that assessment, folks. So, as good as he was last year, Montgomery should not be your RB1 this season.
All right, we have plenty of more. We have plenty more fantasy football analysis from Michael Fabiano. It's all up on Sports Illustrated. Fantasy case against Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, DeAndre Swift. Go check it out, si.com/fantasy.